With church attendance at record lows and children walking away from the faith of generations in their family. Sounds like there's a problem, but the good news is we have a solution for you today. I'm Jonathan Yellen, and this is Finding the Point. Folks, it's great to have you with us. I'm Jonathan Yellen, board-certified behavior analyst. Today with me is Pastor Aaron Mudge. How are you doing, Pastor Aaron?
I'm doing really good. I'm really excited about this episode today, and I'm excited to have our guest.
I am too. It's kind of cool that we were even able to get him. Kind of an all-star that might not be, that everybody might not be familiar with. But Pastor Jason Wright from Faith Baptist Church in Oconomowoc. Pastor Jason, great to have you here today.
It's good to be here. I'm really excited to talk about what we have here today. So
yeah, it's pretty exciting. I mean, I know you guys have heard me talk on and on and on about all of my favorite topics, but this is one that Pastor Aaron, I know this is this topic of discipleship and solving these problems with I don't like to use the word passion in the church, but I think it might be appropriate here. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, passion, enthusiasm, zeal.
I do like the word zeal. So
zeal
that's
Bible.
great.
It's a good Bible word.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let me introduce Pastor Jason here, folks. He's been a youth pastor. Let's see, it's been 6 years, right, Pastor Jason?
Yep. Going on 6 years.
Yep. Youth pastor at Faith Baptist Church in Oconomowoc, and that's in Wisconsin. For those of you who don't know all of your small town geography for the entire United States, he's currently studying theology at MBU, and then your day job, other than being a pastor, of course, which is just your life.
Tent making pastor, but I'm horrible at making tents.
So instead, you're a professional voice actor, right?
Yeah.
And then on the side, you're running
Nice.
a YouTube, Twitch,
YouTube channel,
multimedia
gaming,
conglomerate.
Which, yep.
Yeah, which is called The Backlog. Great Christian entertainment. We hope to have him on here to talk about Christian entertainment some other time.
Ooh, that'll be good.
Yeah.
That'd be
Yeah,
great.
that would
But
be
that's
good.
not today. Also a father of 3. So, Jason, we're really excited to have you here today. The big problem that I see, and honestly one of the main concerns that I have that have pushed me to try to help provide help for Christians out there, and I think one of the big tools comes from learning to understand the Bible through the lens of Christian behavior analysis, and with that direct revelation from Scripture and understanding the natural revelation that God has given us through the scientific process that He built for us. But also, there is a relational aspect to consider that I think we have some issues with in many churches. I don't want to say all, but many. And Pastor Aaron, maybe you can speak to this more, but you've mentioned to me, Pastor Aaron, that discipleship is an area that you think the church broadly really needs to develop some skills in. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that to intro here.
Well, I've always seen in the Bible, you see the way that Jesus taught, the way that the apostles taught, it was all through discipleship, life on life. And I've seen in not just necessarily in my church, but in a lot of churches in general, you see this phenomenon where you have people that get saved, or even people that are saved that come into the church, and then that's it. There's preaching from the pulpit, and Sunday school maybe, but other than that, there's no real discipleship. Yeah. And by discipleship, I don't mean another Sunday school class. I mean one life taking another life under their wing and maybe doing a Bible study, maybe hanging out, maybe doing some things together, all of that. And there seems to be a real lack in churches, and I've seen that in my church, even with our children's ministries, when we changed from the model of let's just bring as many kids on the bus as we can to the model of having different families reach out to kids and invest in the lives of those kids, we've seen much better results.
So we're seeing a lot of churches today, is this fair to say? Just to summarize, we're seeing a lot of churches today that have a church program, and realistically what we see is people who show up for almost a social club. I don't want to accuse anyone of running a social club church, but there could be a trend more towards that today. So
Yeah, I think there is.
So to summarize that, Pastor Jason, I know at your church you have a very radically different picture and a radically different philosophy on how to implement that. And I know from our pre-show prep that we start from the Great Commission on that. So I'd just like you to take the floor. Let us hear what's this culture at your church and this discipleship approach that you're really championing. If you can share that with us.
Our church was a lot like so many churches out there. They had very shallow Christians. The only church growth we had was from other churches coming in. Our teens would grow up and go to secular colleges or even go to Maranatha and then reject everything and run away from God. And we really felt we need discipleship or disciple making or disciple mentoring. We need some way to do this, but how? And so my pastor actually was talking with somebody else, and they were mentioning from the Bible, from the scriptures here, about how to make disciple making. And so our church started driving and wanting and as a church coming together and saying, how can we build a culture in our church where we disciple one another, where we grow up together? I mean, there are so many good one another passages in the scriptures that are talking about how, as a church, how we're supposed to help one another and put up with one another and forgive one another.
And provoke one another to love.
Good works. There's so many of those that we don't actually know how to do as a culture.
Because the programmatic approach that we see a lot doesn't really look like that Bible description that you guys are describing here.
And every time we would think, okay, we need to disciple our people, we need to be good shepherds as pastors, immediately we'd think, okay, what program should we start?
Exactly.
Yeah. And is there a book?
The big problem with programs is you start them and then you end them.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not what we're supposed to be doing. There should be no end. It shouldn't be this rigid, systematic.
It's not like you've arrived, you've memorized the catechism, and now you know the doctrine, so you're a disciple.
One of the things
now.
I've found in churches too is you end up, as a pastor, I'm like, okay, we want to do this thing, so let's start this program, and my people or your people as a pastor start going, okay, one more program we have to show up for.
Yep. And programs, they'll have a date where you've got to be there to join it, and if you're sick that day, you miss it, and then it's like, oh no. But
okay, so you're talking about then not just running a program, not running a 12-week class for the new members of the church. Right. But also, I don't think we're talking about some radical new, like, ecumenical life church, lift, jump, reach, wild left-leaning liberal thing, right? It's more about getting back to that original biblical church discipleship model. So then what does that look like in practice for you guys, and how do you do it?
We haven't used any incense yet.
Good. Hey, you haven't got your drum set on stage and
new age stuff going on there, huh?
I'd love to get some good kettle drums on maybe beside the stage. We don't have a very big stage at our church, but it feels when you first hear it. Just fair warning, listener. As you hear this, you're going to be like, no, this can't work. This has to be from Satan. No, it's not. It's the total opposite. This has been in our faces the entire time. We've just forgotten it. This was New Testament church right from Acts. This is what they were doing.
Yeah. That church that was seeing 3,000 saved daily.
And I think part of the problem is we look at the Great Commission and we say, oh, no, we can't do that. That's what liberals do. Liberals are all about the Great Commission and just making people saved and having...
Right, and sacrificing, choosing God and God's way in order to get the numbers up.
Right. And
which
so
we're against.
we've kind of fallen back from that, but it's the Bible. It's what we're supposed to be doing. We should be the biggest champions.
So then my question would be, how can we do it while maintaining the conservative principles that are important to us? That we
Right.
have to have both
Yep.
internal and external behavior correct and honoring to God, and that the heart is not this big emotional explosion, but the part of us that's choosing
Yep.
God and God's way. So how do you put those together? So how does it work? Maybe some details.
Yeah, as a
so
pastor,
how do you
right
do it?
now I'm thinking, okay, show me the verses.
Yeah, it's like,
Yes,
this sounds
yeah.
great. Let's get to
Okay,
the
enough
to the
intro.
text
Let's
and
get
go
in
there.
here. Let's get
Yeah.
in here. All right, right to Matthew chapter 28. Let's just read it, and then we'll talk about it, and we'll get going here. Matthew
Yeah.
chapter 28, verse 18. And Jesus came and spake to them, saying, All power is given unto me in heaven and in earth. Go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Ghost, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I've commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the world. Amen. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And we're really good at parts of that. We're really good at going, and we're really good at baptizing and getting people saved. But then we forget that in verse 19 here, the verb, okay, the big thing we're supposed to be doing, the command is not go.
Right, it's teach.
It's teach.
Yeah, teach
It's
all nations.
teach.
Yeah,
Now,
okay.
And this is
to be the voice of the critic here, well, teach. Yeah, we do that in churches, Sunday school.
oh sure, of course we do that.
So what do you mean we're not doing enough?
Because the
I
rest
told
of
you,
it.
I'm
Putting you
gonna
on
be
the
the critic.
spot.
Yeah. No,
Hey, this is
because
a
of the
pointy
rest of it.
episode, finding the point, right?
Yeah. Because of verse 20. Oh, hold on.
Okay.
Let me back up just real sec. The word teach there isn't just, okay, I'm going to give you a lecture. No, this is the word to make disciples. All right,
Okay.
to teach a fervent pupil, somebody who will follow and do and learn. What was that? Zealously. That's the word
I
we're going
like
with.
zealous. I like that.
Zealously.
Yeah.
All right, not just oh hi, turn in your textbooks to chapter 4 and let's discuss theology. No.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be personal. All right.
It's
This is-
life.
Right.
yeah. And so verse 20 is big, and when suddenly I understood verse 20, it really slapped me in the face. And as a pastor, I had to take a moment and step back and say, hey, I have been failing this part of the Great Commission. Verse 20 says, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I have commanded you. Now,
Like
if you look
everything
that,
I know about the Bible ever.
if you look that up in the Greek, the word all there, it means all.
Yeah, we have a saying in my church, Pastor Holmes started, all means all, and that's all means.
That's all means. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. So okay. So we're supposed to go and teach, baptize them, yes. Go, yes. But we're supposed to teach them everything we know.
Okay.
So let
Probably
me
more
ask
than
you,
a 12-week course then.
yeah. How long is it going to take you to teach everything you know?
Everything I know. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Not
gonna
that I
take-
know a lot, but if we're talking
I've forgotten
about,
more than you'll ever know. No, just kidding.
if we're talking
Sometimes-
about my, not just like my knowledge of the Bible, but my life knowledge as a Christian,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that would
sometimes
take
that's a
lifetime
lot.
to teach.
Sometimes
And-
it takes a little while to teach the same thing because you got to reteach it. I teach teens all the time, and every single week I've got to you go back and say, okay, what did we talk about last week?
Well, and we're talking life.
We still love you, teenagers. If you're a teenager
Yeah,
watching
we
this
do.
show, Jason loves you.
I do, and I take the time to teach them what I taught them before, and eventually it clicks and they remember it, and that's great.
Yeah.
When
And
you see the
we're-
light
And it
go
makes
on.
a difference in their lives too.
It does.
Yeah.
And
does.
because we're talking life here, sometimes I have to reteach myself the things.
Yeah. And sometimes while you're relearning it, you learn something new, and you're like, oh, I need to teach them that too, because if you learn something, verse 20 says you need to teach it.
Yeah, and I can just across curriculums here. I end up teaching a lot of technicians how to implement treatments in psychology, and when I'm studying stuff in school or whatever, and I was like, oh yeah, that's important. I need to go teach that to all of my technicians so they're implementing it. It's just like it's on any teaching profession if you have any experience
Right.
with teaching at all.
But
So-
now, if we can just, sorry to interrupt, John. we've used the word disciple, but we haven't really defined it for those that aren't familiar with
Sure.
what the Bible talks about a disciple. So, because you said that word teach means to make disciples,
Right.
how is that different than lecturing and teaching a Sunday school class?
Right. In the Bible, the word that's translated disciples all throughout is not talking about somebody who's just learning for a head knowledge. They culturally, they would use that word to describe somebody who had found a teacher that they were going to follow and emulate in as closely as they could. They I forget, it's not martyros. It's close to it's
This is what happens when we
Martyros.
bring college master's level theologians on. Start
we're
remembering the
not
Greek.
Greek scholars here, so
I didn't type it in there, but yeah, it's this word that's talking about following somebody closely and trying to become them.
Well, jumping back to
emulate so much as
philosophy,
possible.
it's like Aristotle and Socrates and Plato, right? They're
Right.
like a lineage. They're copies of each other, and they were disciples of each other's teachings.
Right.
Which is a biblical idea, because 1 Corinthians 11:1, Paul says, "Be ye followers of me, even as I also am of Christ."
Right. So
Right.
that idea of like making the copy, that makes sense. Jason, now I don't want to rush you, but we only have a couple minutes left here.
Okay.
I think I'm really hyped about this. Could you just give, just for the people who've stuck through this and are on the edge of their seats, what does this look like? Practical example.
Okay.
What
sure.
is?
Yeah.
And even if you need to give your own experience with discipleship and how it looks for you, and we'll go into more details in the next episodes. This is a series, folks, so stick
Yeah.
with us.
Yeah.
But practical examples here, Jason. What's
Sure.
it actually look like for you in the last 2 minutes we've got here on the clock?
Well, okay. Let me give you a couple of examples. I went to a church that had been practicing this for like 10 years. They'd been working on building this culture in their church. And if you go to their church on a Wednesday night, they have their teen group. They have the big prayer meeting. And they have everything. They have all the normal programs. But then
that's awesome.
they have this big open room. And they don't they set up chairs and they set up tables, and people will come in there and they will study the Bible with their disciplee or their discipler. And they'll sit there and they'll open various books that will help them guide them through the Bible. And all of those books, for the pastors who are listening, all of those books have been approved by the pastoral staff.
Yeah, okay.
And-
I was going to say
and
that.
by
It's still guided by the church. It's not
Right.
just like, oh
Right.
yeah,
It's-
show up and have a small
it's
group in the corner.
the church. It's part
Yeah, it's
of
a
the
church. Yeah.
The under shepherd is still guiding.
And the amazing thing is, some of those people, they're not in pairs. Some of them there are three of them, because one of them went out into Jerusalem and found somebody who was lost and built a relationship with them and said, "Hey, do you want to study the Bible with me?" But they didn't really feel like they were ready to teach. And so they're like, "Hey, why don't you come and we'll listen and we'll learn together." And that relationship, and they're like, "Oh, sure." And so they would come and learn and get saved and never stop learning. But the room was just packed, filled with these pairs and triplets. And there were a couple of little groups of like ladies that they had met and won each other for Christ, and they didn't want to leave because they had that relationship. And so they were studying Corinthians together. They were studying Ephesians together. And so we started doing this in our church about a year and a half, 2 years ago. Started teaching the theology of disciple making and examples from Thessalonians and from Acts and Paul and Timothy. And just in the past year and a half, 2 years, we have started encouraging our church people to find somebody to lead, find somebody to follow, and find somebody to win. Win one, lead one, follow one. And everybody needs to do those. All right, that's the goal of everybody. But not win the world for Christ, just win one. Okay?
Make it personal.
once you've won them to Christ, don't stop there. Lead them. And while you're leading someone, follow somebody, because you don't want to get off course. And if you get off course, you need somebody to say, hey, wait, what does the Bible say? Come back to the Bible. Come back to the Bible. And to make sure they're staying close, they're following someone. And that person's following someone. And that person's following someone. And that's why it has to be done in the church. Because it has to be not just pairs. You don't want pairs. You want a web. You want a network.
Right.
You want like not just cells in the body, but a whole working system.
A
I think
network.
maybe that's where it crosses over
tissue.
from a program to a culture.
A culture. Yeah.
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 Well, guys, I hate to be the voice of interrupting the show, but we are actually out of
I
time for
want
the
to
show
know
today.
more.
I got all
Now,
fired
if
up.
you're
I gotta
you're
stop.
fired up like us and you do want to know more, we are currently planning on a 3-part series here with Pastor Jason. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel.
Yeah, Pastor
Jason's
Jason has his way.
signaling 4, 5. All right, I guess he's enjoying his time on the show. That's probably a good sign. No, honestly,
when you're
we
taught
really
to
had
keep teaching the rest of your life, time is, well, who cares? We got plenty of time. Let's just teach.
Yeah. I mean, it's great. I think everybody's, what, if you appreciate having Pastor Jason on like I do, go ahead and click like on our video and then share it. But also leave a comment as well. The shares are the most important according to our producer, so please leave that.
Yep.
Pastor
Yep,
Aaron, I do want to
absolutely.
give you a chance for that final challenge, and then we're going to head out of here so we can get another one ready for you guys next time.
So I guess to give us a challenge, at this point, we're not at the let's implement this stage. So this is more of we're kind of challenging our thinking. So if you think that we're coming up with something radical and new, and so check out the verses. Go to Matthew 28, 18 through 20. Study it. Look at the Bible. See what the Bible says about discipleship. Do some studying on this. And then maybe begin praying about how you can implement this in your life. Even if you aren't the pastor of a church, maybe you can start doing this in your own life.
Well, thank you, Pastor Aaron, and thank you, Pastor Jason. We really appreciate you guys being here on the show with us today. I think this is a great one, a little more in the realm of ideas and anticipation, but it is anticipation for the series. So we should have new episodes coming out in just a couple weeks here. So go ahead and subscribe or click like if you're on Facebook, and then, of course, share as well so that the word gets out and we can all learn about this together. Special thanks to Caleb and David, our producer and editor, or editor and producer. Flip that around. Sorry, guys. And thank you for all of you guys who are viewing Finding the Point. I've been Jonathan Yellen. Have a great day.